Number 42, Bill Clinton, and what a roller coaster his life has been. He was born in 1946 in Hope, Arkansas. Clinton's original birth name was William Blythe. I'll explain. You see, Clinton's mother, Virginia Kelly, met a young man named William Blythe. They fell in love, they got married. She didn't know that her husband, William, had already been married and divorced 3 times and had 2 children, and that the 2 of his ex-wives were sisters. She found out about this almost 50 years later. Well, they got married, and when Virginia was 6 months pregnant, William had a car accident, fell into a ditch, and drowned in 3 feet of water. Her baby was born and was named William, the future president. So for a while, it was just Virginia and her little son William. But soon she married a car salesman who was named Roger Clinton. And they had a baby boy named, after the father, Little Roger. Now the father would get angry and beat up poor Virginia, and Bill Clinton at 14 stood up to his stepfather and defended his mother and his half-brother. Bill later said it was the bravest thing that he'd ever done. Bill later changed his name from Bill Blythe to Bill Clinton, so the whole family could have the same name. Well, Virginia would leave her husband, but they'd get back together. Eventually, he died of cancer. She married for a 3rd time, and when that husband died from complications of diabetes, she married for a 4th and last time. Now, Bill Clinton's half-brother Roger grew up wild, got into drugs. He was a musician and an actor of sorts. He got arrested, did 1 year in jail for possession and cocaine dealing. You can see him in an episode of The Nanny. He was an actor and a musician. He had a daughter who he was estranged from, and she became a cosmetologist. This career was paid for by her Uncle Bill. Bill Clinton also paid for his brother Roger's house. Roger Clinton lives there. He's 59 years old and does not work. Now, Bill Clinton wasn't very good in sports, but he was an active student. He liked music and politics. He joined a boys' club at 17, visited Washington, D.C., where he got to shake hands with President John F. Kennedy, which he later said this inspired him greatly. Clinton went to Georgetown University and Oxford. He became a lawyer. He was against the Vietnam War, and as a student, he protested the Vietnam War. He was worried about being drafted. He actually got his foot into ROTC where he could avoid combat, but he later turned that chance down, worried about how it would look if he got into politics. He decided to take his chances and registered for selective services, but he managed to get a high draftee number. The point is, he found a way not to go to Vietnam. He went to Yale University and met Hillary Rodham. They became a couple and were inseparable. They both worked for presidential campaign of Democratic nominee George McGovern in 1972. They lived in California. They married in 1975. 5 years later, their only child, Chelsea, was born. Getting into politics, Clinton became governor of Arkansas at the age of 32, the youngest governor in the country. Unfortunately, he pushed forward an unpopular motor vehicle fee, and then when Cubans who came to the United States from the Mariel were sent to a detainee center in Arkansas, Clinton complained to President Carter that there were too many Cuban refugees there, but to no avail. Cubans escaped the center, Clinton became unpopular, and lost re-election. He came back, though, and won again, and remained governor for the next 10 years. Now we have to talk about Whitewater, a scandal that plagued Clinton for many years. It's complicated. I'll try to make it simple. The Clintons had as friends a married couple named the McDougalls. The Clintons and the McDougalls bought some land named Whitewater in Arkansas. The idea was to develop some vacation homes and maybe sell the land later. Well, the deal fell through. The two couples lost money. So McDougal tried to borrow over $1 million to build some properties there to try to recoup their losses. The McDougals couldn't legally borrow more than $600,000 from a savings company that he himself owned, so he got others to borrow for him. And here's where Bill Clinton comes in. One man named Dave Hale said that Clinton called him to pressure him to authorize a loan for McDougal. This would be unethical, and if McDougals were illegally borrowing money, it was a crime. In a nutshell, that's it. But the Clintons were investigated for about 10 years for this, and this is important because this was a land deal that almost brought down his presidency. Clinton decided to run for president in 1992, and it was an uphill battle. The Whitewater scandal was coming out, also his evasive answers to questions about smoking marijuana when he was young. Also, did he evade the draft during the Vietnam War? But the main issue was womanizing. He was accused of having a 12-year affair with a Jennifer Flowers. He was accused of sexual harassment by a Paula Jones. People began to call Bill Clinton Slick Willie. He was having an uphill battle. In fact, he was in third place in the polls and running for president. So Clinton went after the youth vote. He went on Arsenio Hall show, played the saxophone, came out on MTV, answered a bunch of questions. He campaigned very, very hard. And, well, what can I say? He won. Al Gore was his vice presidential running mate. What carried him over the top was the fact that people wanted change, and so Bill Clinton became president number 42. One of his first acts was signing the Family Medical Leave Act. He also reversed restrictions on family planning and said this would make abortions safe, legal, and rare. In his 8 years as president, abortions went down 18%. Now, Clinton had promised a middle-class tax cut, but he did not deliver. Instead, he raised taxes on the rich and cut taxes for lower-income families and small businesses. Now, Clinton fired some employees from the White House travel department. They sued. This didn't go anywhere. However, a White House counsel and boyhood friend of Bill Clinton, Vince Foster, drove out one day and shot himself. He committed suicide. Once that happened, the Clintons had his office files pulled out. His office was cleaned out. Now, Clinton said it was because of security reasons. Others say that maybe there were some files there that pertain to the Whitewater scandal. Clinton tried to push forward a national health insurance for the country, but that fell through. It failed. He did sign the Brady Bill, making it a mandatory 5-day waiting period before you could purchase a gun. And sitting right next to him was Jim Brady, the man who was paralyzed in the Ronald Reagan assassination attempt. Now, Clinton had signed the Defense of Marriage Act, basically saying that gays could not get married. Now, he had promised that he would lift the ban on gays in the military. Many gays looked forward to being able to serve openly, but military superiors and many congressmen disagreed and vowed to vote against such a measure. In the compromise, he backed off. Instead, he pushed the don't ask, don't tell policy. Well, many gays felt betrayed, yet Clinton did double the budget to make HIV medication more affordable, and billions were spent for research. He hired more openly gay persons than anyone up to that time, and he enforced a Non-Discrimination Act to include sexual discrimination and pushed against hate crimes against gays. He signed laws to limit the number of immigrants. He also opened up better medical insurance for children and minors. There were still questions about the Whitewater land deal, so a special counsel was named. His name was Kenneth Starr. He was named to investigate the matter, and he would prove to be relentless. In the meantime, Clinton signed the NAFTA agreement, an agreement to open free trade between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. In Waco, Texas, a cult called the Davidians, led by David Koresh, lived in a compound. And because they were suspected of having illegal weapons, the ATF, federal agents, raided the building, and there was a gunfight, resulting in the death of 4 government agents and 6 Davidians. There was a standoff with the FBI that lasted 51 days. Then the FBI threw tear gas. A fire broke out that killed 73 Davidians, including children. An investigation concluded that the Davidians set the fire themselves. But 2 people that did not believe the government report were Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols. In their hatred for the federal government, they set off a bomb in a federal building in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people and wounding over 600. McVeigh was executed in 2001, and Nichols is serving 168 life sentences. Clinton signed the Omnibus Crime Bill, a massive program where billions of dollars were spent for more police, more prisons, stricter federal laws, expansion of the death penalty, and it started the 3 strikes and you're out policy. If you committed 3 felonies, you went to jail for life. Now, crime dropped, but there was mass incarceration and a disproportionate amount of black Americans were put away. So the U.S. military was trying to track down warlords, helping the United Nations, but in the Battle of Mogadishu, 2 Black Hawk helicopters were shot down. In that battle, 18 Americans died, 73 were wounded, and an estimated 300 Somalians died. The sight of Somalians dragging dead American bodies through the streets angered Americans. When Clinton tried to give condolences to the families of the dead soldiers, some of them cursed at him. So Clinton pulled the troops out of Somalia. Kenneth Starr continued his investigation, and Paula Jones was still pushing forward with her lawsuit for sexual harassment. In 1994, the Republicans gained a majority in both houses of Congress. The Republican leader Newt Gingrich presented an agenda of Republican reforms, and it seemed that Clinton would have a hard time pushing his own agenda and would probably not win re-election. But when Congress disagreed with Clinton's budget bill the following year, and shut down the government for 28 days, Clinton stood firm and the American people blamed Congress for the shutdown. Clinton hosted a meeting between the leaders of Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization. It was called the Oslo Accords. And because the economy was gaining strength, Clinton was easily re-elected in 1996. In Yugoslavia, ethnic cleansing was occurring as Albanians were being killed. Clinton sent a bombing raid. After the raid, a peacekeeping mission arrived, and the president of Yugoslavia, Milosevic, was put on trial for crimes against humanity. But he suffered a heart attack and died in jail before his trial. In 2000, Elizabeth Rodriguez, her boyfriend, and her son Elian left Cuba on a raft attempting to reach Florida. The couple drowned, but Elian reached the United States. His granduncle and family claimed him, but the court said that only his father could claim him and his dad wanted him back in Cuba. A huge court battle broke out. The family refused to release him to his father. Celebrities joined the crowd outside the home. And finally, federal agents raided the house and snatched Elian. After the Supreme Court refused to hear the case, Elian was returned to Cuba with his dad, and today, well, he is engaged and expresses desire to visit his family members back in Florida again. Remember the Whitewater land deal? Kenneth Starr was still investigating. Some people did get arrested. And while Starr had nothing on the Clintons, he asked if he could interrogate some of the women who claimed to have slept with Clinton to see if they had information. This reignited sexual harassment lawsuits from Paula Jones. There were also allegations from Kathleen Willey. And then came the bombshell. A White House employee, Linda Tripp, told Kenneth Starr that her friend Monica Lewinsky had had an affair with President Clinton. Now, Clinton denied this at first, saying he had not had sex with Monica Lewinsky, but then he admitted that there was an inappropriate relationship. Lewinsky had a stained dress, which was tested for DNA. Now, Kenneth Starr found nothing about Whitewater or land deals, but now he stumbled upon something new: accusations of perjury and obstruction of justice. So the land deal, where Clinton actually lost about $30,000 before becoming president, turned into a Senate hearing and impeachment proceedings against Clinton to try to remove him from office, making him only the second president in the United States to be impeached. This whole investigation would cost the American taxpayers roughly about $70 million. The story dominated the headlines for weeks, and we heard shockingly intimate details about Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. It was the story of the year. Clinton was not impeached and actually gained popularity. The taxpayers felt that they were being screwed over for something that was salacious and, well, not national security. In the end, Clinton was acquitted, even though he was tainted. In Iraq, after the first Gulf War, Saddam Hussein was being contained so he wouldn't make weapons of mass destruction. He would violate the terms constantly, and American and British military would attack hostile Iraqi targets 166 times in 1999 and 73 times in 2000. Clinton also did try to capture Osama bin Laden. There were terrorist bombings in East Africa. Also, there was a bomb in New York City in the World Trade Center. The bomb wounded thousands and killed about 6. And in spite of all of this, Clinton did attack some sites where Osama was rumored to have been, missing on all occasions. There were also times where Osama wasn't targeted. In the end, Clinton was not able to capture Al-Qaeda or Osama bin Laden. Well, after $70 million in about 8 years, Kenneth Starr had nothing. Now, Clinton's friend Jim McDougal did go to jail, had a heart attack, and died there. McDougal's wife, Susan, a Clinton friend, refused to testify against the president, and, well, she was put in jail. Now, Clinton presided over the longest peacetime economic expansion in modern history. When he entered the White House, the deficit was over $200 billion, but he balanced the budget in 5 years. In fact, there was a $69 billion surplus, a $126 billion surplus in 1998, and a $236 billion surplus in the year 2000. In his last day in office, he gave a presidential pardon to his friend Susan McDougal, and the Whitewater scandal was over. Clinton left the White House extremely popular, and the Clinton Foundation has raised awareness for global warming, AIDS prevention, humanitarian efforts, especially after the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. But there's been controversy with millions that he's generated over his speaking tours. Clinton's wife became senator, secretary of state, and presidential candidate. Now, Clinton says he's sorry about the Defense of Marriage Act and that his crime bill was so harsh. He says he has evolved. Now, is this true, or is he trying to be a little self-serving now that his wife is running for president? Or is there a right-wing faction that's out to get him? People say where there's smoke, there is fire. And maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle, but others would say, well, no, the truth is where it's at. History is still being written here, and it looks like we're going to have a little bit of Clinton to kick around for a little while longer. Well, send me your comments. This is Cool Talk.